Welcome back after a break of almost a month to Binging the Force, a Star Wars watch party. And back with me are some of the usual suspects. We've got Jefferson.
Hello.
Steve is a returner.
Hey, everybody.
And a mainstay, Kim.
Hello.
Once a rebel, always a rebel. Well, Jefferson, you want to kind of key us up there?
Sure.
Like I said, maybe it's been almost a month since we've done this because I was kind of out of pocket. So,
right. So tonight we're watching Andor episode 4. I forget the title of the episode. Aldhani.
Aldhani.
Right there in front of me. We get a lot of interesting information about our main character in this episode, I think. And this moves the story along arguably more so than any of the previous episodes have, I think.
Well, I mean, we'll get into it, but I mean, I think the first set of episodes, the first 3 episodes comprise a story, the escape basically from his previous life.
Sure.
And now we begin his next phase of his life, which covers, I believe, the next 3 or 4 episodes. So
right. And I'm kind of excited. There's an exchange that I'll bring up when we hit this point in the episode that answers some of my questions that I have been bringing up over the past few episodes about Andor's timeline, about his and some of the comments that he makes in Rogue One about how long he's been fighting the Empire. So that was exciting. I had a little punch the fist moment when I was rewatching this episode yesterday.
Yeah, I rewatched a little bit of it this morning prepping for this, but I haven't rewatched the whole thing yet, so I'll be rewatching it with you guys for the first time in like a year or so.
Jefferson, I can't wait for you to clear this up because I've been so impressed how all of the Star Wars lines up perfectly and nothing contradicts and everything supports every other thing that has ever happened. So
yeah, that totally happens. Yeah.
Well, cool. Any other comments before we get going?
I'm going to be talking a lot about the costumes, so I'm sorry. I may even scream and interrupt.
That's all right.
Okay.
Excited to have you talk about the costumes. That is definitely a take that I am not qualified to do, so I'm interested to hear your take on it.
And I'll be interested to hear about the costumes because, like I went through, like I've said before, I'm not a cosplayer by any stretch, but when I was putting together my outfit for the Galactic Star Cruiser, I spent a lot of time looking at what people wear in the background in Star Wars and came to a few conclusions, such as you never, ever see any visible fasteners. Nobody has buttons or snaps or anything, or even buckles, hardly ever. Just little things like that I noticed.
I'm glad you corrected yourself on this. I'm not a cosplayer because I was about to queue up a bunch of closed caption footage from the Galactic Star Cruiser that shows a cosplayer that looked a lot like you.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. That's
yeah, and that was the only time. I swear.
that's like a one-time excursion into the costuming realm. So that's like showing a picture of someone at Halloween and saying, "Okay, you're a cosplayer." It's
right. Right. And honestly, I mean, I pretty half-assed it. I wore a jacket, that was pretty much it. Other than that, it was clothes that I would wear anywhere.
It was a very nice
definitely is. There's a color palette. You can definitely tell each planet has their own as well, and most characters, and all usually the high royalty is whites and beiges.
I can't remember. I guess timing wise, I would guess Andor probably would have been in last year's Emmys. I mean, I know this year's Emmys got pushed back. Like we didn't get the Emmys when we were supposed to get them in August or September, I guess. We're not getting them until January. So I don't know if this show would have qualified for the previous Emmys that already happened last year, or if it would have been for this year's Emmys, because, costumers is definitely something that could have gotten nominated for this. So
did the Emmys follow did the Emmys follow January to December?
No,
is when you're eligible.
No, I believe it's more September to August. I believe because that's the traditional TV season. So
okay, Interesting.
but everything's now all off because they pushed it back because they didn't want to have it in September because no one would have been there.
Well, I'll be interested to hear more about the costumes for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool. I guess let's go ahead and get going. We will have the what happened last time, which is probably good because it's been so long. Normally, I like to cut that off, but I didn't do that today yet. So let us roll.
What happened last time? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, last time was all about the battle there on the planet, and how do our heroes escape the attack from the local security guards?
And then that frumpy guy getting his stick further pushed up his butt.
Yeah, and how does the security guy completely destroy his career?
Right.
There it goes. I'm going to beat up on an old woman.
Yeah. It's hopefully a pretty good way to do it.
The chains and weights video game level room that we grabbed about a little bit last time. What's that? What are these chains for? It's like the chompers in Galaxy Quest. What are these for?
It's exactly like the scene in Galaxy Quest. It's like, what is this even here for?
Yeah. Still a great scene, though. I think I'd rather have the chains and weights than not.
So last scene there is basically heading to the ship to escape his previous life, his previous existence. Yeah.
To another imprisonment. Uh-oh.
And who here wouldn't go off with Stellan Skarsgård given the opportunity?
With who?
With Stellan Skarsgård,
Luthen, yeah, the actor is Stellan Skarsgård. I don't know. I mean, he can be pretty creepy.
He's one of my wife's favorites.
Oh yeah. Here's the reason why I normally cut this off: is the 17-minute opening Andor sequence.
Well, I don't know what to say.
This is the place you're supposed to go to the bathroom if you forgot. You have about 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's like we know the show's called Andor. We tuned in to watch it. We don't need 7-minute buildup to the name Andor.
And yet we do.
Unless you're doing a podcast, I guess.
So instead of a ship arriving at a planet, it's a ship leaving a planet as our starting point. Calculating for Aldhani. Well, what's Aldhani? It's the next 3-episode arc.
Right.
And, thanks for the warning.
Yeah, no other seats in this ship, I guess.
And the one thing that hit me about this show is, Tony Gilroy was saying the whole time that he wasn't a big Star Wars fan, so he didn't really care about canon and all these things. But yet he gives us that view out the cockpit jumping to hyperspace. And that is basically the tickler to bring you right back into the Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so even though he doesn't have anything to do with what else was going on, he definitely gives us these really nice little nods and cues to make sure those muscles are exercised, that this is Star Wars.
Well, that's why a show is not made by one person.
That's probably true.
There's set designers and
there are definitely other people involved.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it just means he said, "Well, you people who know about that stuff, you make that happen."
Yeah, you make
it is a nice touch.
So the question is, did he notice?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question, I suppose. Or did he? Yeah, did it matter to him? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I do love this conversation here. I mean, this conversation between Luthen and him is basically, it's the, are you going to step into a larger world conversation? Do you just want me to drop you off at a planet and you can start running for the rest of your life?
Yeah, you do it on your own.
Yeah, or do you want to do you want your life to be about something,
Right. And they're about to, I'm not sure exactly when, but in this exchange, they're going to reinforce something that we talked about last time. We talked about trying to figure out the timeline of how old is Cassian and when exactly this takes place. And the line that he says in Rogue One about, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. This exchange here demonstrates that he's full of it. He's a liar. because he misrepresents himself. He represents himself as a veteran of Mimban, which was a cool nod too, because that's the mud planet from Solo, where Solo meets Chewbacca. And so Cassian brags about here we go right here. He brags about having been at Mimban, and now Lucian's going to call him out on it and say, "You were a cook. You weren't a soldier. You weren't in the fighter. Yeah. And you only survived because you ran away."
Yeah.
Yeah. See, here we go. You came in as a cook. So this kind of demonstrates that he's not above misrepresenting himself to seem cooler than he actually is.
Yeah, he's an unreliable narrator of his own life. He is making up his story as he goes along. He's telling people what he wants them to know when he wants them to know it.
Wait, are you talking about me or are you talking about Andor?
Yeah, we're not talking about you, Steve.
Okay, yeah.
Well, yeah. What did you do on Mimban?
Yeah.
I'll admit I was a cook.
I'm sure the food was terrible on Mimban.
It was.
You were a dishwasher.
He was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
I was a Mimban hairdresser. That's right.
We've already established that Cassian was the cook.
Yeah, so he basically said, I wasn't there for that, to buy that object from you. I was there for you. I'd been studying you. I was looking into you. You were someone I was interested in, which is creepy.
It is, but it's also a really interesting point. The other day, I was watching the Battle of Britain, war movie from 1968, I think it was, with Michael Caine. And it's about basically the first year of World War II, when Britain is basically trying to fight off these continued German airplane attacks. And something they talk about in the movie is that the problem is not having enough planes, it's having enough pilots. That's the shortage. That's always the shortage, is having people that can do the things that you need them to do. So of course, yeah, he's much more interested in Cassian than he is in some piece of technology.
Right, exactly. It's about having the right things. But so we now switch to a major change in setting
and
here.
I hate her.
It's our very first time in this series going to Coruscant and seeing, what is Coruscant like during this period of time, now under Imperial rule. And it was interesting that Coruscant, capital of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's Kim earlier talked about color palettes for costumes, and what I find really interesting is they've given Coruscant a very different color palette to what we saw in Attack of the Clones, when Obi-Wan and Anakin are on Coruscant. In Attack of the Clones, it's all very neon, and that's a lot of browns, and here it's all gray and white. It's all bare concrete.
Empire also, there's a big
yeah. So they're kind of showing us the difference now that the Empire's taken over.
Yep. Yeah, everything's right. And we're with the Imperial Security Bureau, the ISB. So kind of the Empire for the Empire. I mean, we've normally dealt mostly with either like high-ranking generals or, rank and file troopers.
What's our purpose?
Yeah. So here we're dealing with the secret police, basically the upper echelon, the KGB.
Right. The people who will disappear you.
Yeah, exactly.
Dedra.
Yeah, really the Emperor's true enforcers. I mean, that's the tendrils that the Emperor has sent out into the galaxy that basically brings the information back to him. These are not rank and file people. These are not like just soldiers following orders. These are the people pulling the strings that Palpatine wants them to pull.
And even they're not above petty squabbling and power struggles and internal backstabbing.
Because bureaucracy is bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so we're introduced to this female character here who's a member of the ISB. We're introduced to the head of the ISB there. And it's all about, Imperial strategy, and he's kind of pulling them I would make a reference to the paper chase, but no one's going to get that under the age of 55.
Right.
But basically kind of trying to get them is like, why are we here? What are we doing? What are we doing? What we really are is we are the enforcers of the Emperor's will,
Well, he says that like you're supposed to be collecting information, finding out what's going on. You're supposed to find out where the sickness is and find out what's, where the changes are. We're supposed to be ahead of everything.
Right.
And that's what you guys should be doing. And she's like, so basically kind of spies.
Right. We are not reactive. This is, the ISB is not reactive. The ISB is purely proactive.
Yeah.
They are finding out about the problems before the problems become problems.
Squashing them.
Yeah, squashing them basically. They, and also in the conversation previously on the ship, one thing that I thought was really important was when Andor was trying to guess, what faction he was with, and he named off all these factions, and he's like, well, what's the difference? And that's kind of the point, is we're still at the stage now where there really isn't a rebellion. Like we saw the end of the rebellion where there was this cohesive, rebellion. It was a thing. They were mobilized. They had thrust. They had organization. They don't have that right now.
No,
right now we're under Imperial rule, and there's a lot of people pissed off about it.
There are rebels, but there's no rebellion.
Yeah, you've got like all these different factions with all these different ideas about what to do about it. There is not an organized rebellion at this point.
Mm-hmm. They're not the alliance yet.
It's just a spark right now.
Yep. So Ron Aldhani, he's joining a crew. Basically, we don't know what it is. Well, we know that the mission is to steal basically the quarterly payroll for the Empire.
Just down payment there. And this is also clearly a test for Cassian.
Right.
Yeah, but he's also trying to show him some trust, I think. Like, it's way more important to me. So if you bring it back to me, I'll give you more than 50. But if you have to sell it, it's at least worth 50,000.
Right.
Then we meet somebody new here.
Yeah, we start to meet the crew because we're basically, for 3 episodes, we're going on a heist.
Some lovely ponchos in this sequence.
Yeah.
This is the poncho planet.
Yeah. This is poncho.
In the weeds, I love it. Like, there's not going to be no thorns, no stickers in that at all.
Well, it's every planet in Star Wars, as it's well known, has only one biome. So this is just the gentle rolling hillside planet.
So the only bad thing in Star Wars is sand.
Sand. Well, it's just that's all there is on those particular planets that have sand. This is interesting that his droid or his ship talks. You don't meet many ships that talk in Star Wars. The ship clearly has some kind of droid brain.
So the mission.
See, this show is too engrossing. It's hard to talk over it.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm curious to go back a little bit for Kim while this progresses. You don't like Dedra.
Yeah.
What was your first giveaway? Was it her huge ears?
No, maybe her uniform.
Yeah.
I usually don't like the Empire people too much.
Oh, well, sure. I don't think you're supposed to like the Empire people.
There's a lot of people that do. But yeah, she's really mad. Like, we have this plan worked out and you're going to add a new person like 2 days before we do this. And he's like, it's really not a request.
Well, I think it's the reason I think it's interesting is that they kind of, in my opinion, they kind of make her out to be a sympathetic character where you kind of get behind her and then you don't and then you do, and it's pretty tough to hate her when she's actually annoyed by the bureaucracy that she's embroiled in as well.
You're talking about Dedra?
Yeah.
Oh no, she's totally in it for herself. She wants to be like right-hand man to someone. Yeah.
Frustrated by all of the things that we would be frustrated by.
Just because usually smart people are, and they know that there's a bunch of bureaucracy, but that's usually like cult leaders are like that, dictators are like that. She's one of those. So she's just trying to get up.
Podcasters are like, no.
I'm letting you guys just kind of hash it out there. I'm digging the exchange, so go for it.
I'll enjoy seeing the Dedra debate continue.
Yeah, it definitely gets more complex later, right?
Yeah,
Spoiler alert.
Little,
All right, here we are back on Coruscant. You can tell by all the puffy pants.
which is odd because I don't think I've ever seen it in the daytime either.
Yeah, I don't think this is Coruscant though. We're back.
Oh no, you're right. It's not.
We're back in middle management security world where where now what was an independent star systems kind of security force is now got noticed by the Empire. I mean that's part of why his boss originally had told him not to kind of pull at this thread was because the Empire leaves us alone. We don't want them involved. Well, now he made a huge boo-boo, where he got in this big firefight. People got killed. Buildings got destroyed.
Sergeant stick up his butt.
So now the Empire has gotten involved.
And these guys are lucky. All that happened to them was they got fired.
Yeah.
If this was Lord Vader, it would have been a lot worse.
Right. But yeah, so I guess corporate security is what they were. So they basically were their own kind of privatized security force that the Empire tolerated and let them just kind of manage it because if we don't have to send manpower out there to control this, great. As long as it's not, it's what any boss tells you. It's like, if it's not my problem, then it's not a problem.
Right.
It only becomes my problem when it becomes it's only a problem when it becomes my problem. It's like, as long as you're keeping it off my plate, you can do whatever the heck you want. As soon as it becomes my problem, it's your problem.
So now he gets demoted and he gets to push some papers around.
Everything was fine before he ate that cereal. Or has he had that cereal yet?
With the blue milk.
Look at that poncho. That's a great poncho.
See, you're looking at the ponchos. I'm looking at the setting. I'm looking at the gorgeous hills and like mountains.
Also true. And something I brought this up earlier, something that really sets this show apart from the Dave Filoni shows is the actual background that we're looking at.
Yeah.
We're looking at a real environment. We're not looking at a wall with a screen on it. And it shows. I think you can tell.
The acting's really good too.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone so far, there hasn't been.
Well, it's good classic heist. It's good classic heist film stuff, in that everyone hates everyone.
But the performances are really naturalistic too.
Sorry, was that Kim?
I said trust nobody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's like completely disbelieving. It's like, you're taking on the Imperial Armory?
On an armory?
Yeah, seriously.
With us? 7?
7 against a garrison.
Wait, this is a long walk.
Here's another one of this is a great Star Wars moment because, like, so far this could have been any show until this point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was going to say the same thing. There were small gestures, but this was undeniable.
Yeah, once you get TIE fighters, you know what setting you're in.
Yeah,
but that's another thing I just really like about this show is that it's a story first and it's Star Wars second.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's always the case. It's not a story about Star Wars, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so now she just did discover, that that the unit that they were trying to trade and that got stolen, now she's discovered that, and this is fairly significant here.
Yeah, and it looks like she it's hard to tell actually whether she sees this as here's a way I can horn my way in, or whether she's a true believer and she's honestly wanting to follow the right procedure. I can't tell yet which it is. God, those pants though. Ridiculous.
Where's her horse?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so now we get to see the other side of Luthen. So far, we've just seen Luthen as this mysterious figure who has been, gathering a recruit for something. Like I said, it's not even a rebellion at this point. Yeah. It's he's looking for good people, but now we see like him put on a disguise and kind of have a whole nother identity here on Coruscant.
This is a great little scene coming up here after he puts on the wig. He practices smiling in the mirror because he has to be this gregarious shopkeeper now. So he has to be a different person.
And that's the thing is, any student of history, any student of World War II, like Paris during the war and everything, you know, it was full of people like this who, you know, basically had to, you know, kowtow to the Germans and make sure that they were happy, but were really in the French resistance, you know.
Yeah, but just that shot of him just practicing just then, I
His
just found that really interesting.
stuff,
Yeah, he was this commanding, you know, presence of like, you know, dedicated and forceful, and you know, the conversation with Andor, and then now like he completely turns into this like affable shopkeeper who,
Sure,
you
yeah,
know,
he has to be jolly now.
exactly. That's
So-
the mask he wears. That's the Clark Kent glasses that he put on.
So my ultimate question on that is, how long has he been that shopkeeper? Or is that who he was and then he was turned? And so which is the alter ego?
Right.
actually?
Sure.
Who's the secret identity, Batman or Bruce Wayne?
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. I wonder if we'll find that out in the upcoming season, because I don't think we really do in this season. We don't really learn much more about him than we've learned right here.
I mean, I would think that, you know, the shopkeeper is probably who he was, who harbored the feelings that he had, you know, and that they just never could come out until he found this outlet for it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting that, you know, there's the part where he said, you know, I've been watching you, or I'm after you, not the stolen bit. So I wonder who was the person that said, I've been watching you, I've been coming to your shop.
Right.
on
Yeah, who
Coruscant,
recruited him?
and recruited him. Exactly.
This guy is totally dismissing her.
He is. Because he sees her, and from his point of view, she's trying to horn in on his action.
Well, he wanted to sweep the incident under the rug, so he didn't file the report. Yes.
And I guess you're right. That the previous scene with him in corporate security was here in Coruscant, because it was in his office. So
yeah, and those.
See, I found it interesting that they would have gone to the trouble of actually bringing them all the way to Coruscant for that conversation.
Well, they're big on that.
Very cheap back then.
Yeah, and Star Wars they're not big on like phone calls and stuff like that. They, you know, it's rare that you don't go get yelled at in person by somebody.
Well, see, it seems like that would have been a perfect situation in a different show or in a different Star Wars, that he would have been there by hologram.
Right. But this made for a better. I like that they keep that kind of stuff to a minimum in this show, though. Yeah, they keep it really natural. I think which I think is, I like that. I like
Okay,
it.
any fans of The Bear here?
No.
Really? None of you guys have watched The Bear?
I haven't. It's on my list. I have not seen it yet, but he is the guy, right? So,
yeah, well, he's not the lead character, but he is the best. He's one of the best characters.
Okay,
you must watch The Bear. It is an impressive performance that he puts in. The character that he plays there is amazing, and I don't want to spoil anything, you know, because there's 2 seasons of it, and in the second season he puts in what has to be an Emmy-winning performance.
That's fantastic.
I believe there's a rumor right now that he's in the running on the casting for Fantastic Four to potentially play the Thing.
Oh.
But casting for Fantastic Four on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah. Every day it's somebody different.
Do they really need to remake that movie? They've done it like 5 times.
Well,
maybe
it's done right once at least.
They do.
Yeah. I mean, I only have a problem with remakes when you remake something good. Because why try? You're not going to do it better than it's already been done well.
Yeah.
It's never been done well. So yes, it does need to be remade because it hasn't been done well yet.
Poor movie.
See if the 4th time's a charm.
Yes.
Meanwhile, back on Andor, nobody's happy about the interloper.
Yeah, but we're meeting our crew. I mean, you know, we had an episode like this.
Wait for surprises.
Yeah, we had an episode like this with the Mandalorian. You know, we had a heist. You know, here we're going to stretch it out to about 3 episodes and make it much more. You know, really get to know the characters more and really delve into all of their personalities, all their interrelationships in the course of a 3-episode heist film.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that I think is impressive about, you know, how you take the Star Wars out of the Star Wars a little bit is sometimes, especially lately, the Star Wars just flavors it too much. Like these scenes in a just a kind of a neutral, natural backwoods village, encampment. It could be anywhere. It could be anything. So you actually do focus on the chemistry and the characters and the dialogue. And so I think it's actually a really much more powerful build than if you had a droid and an alien and all these other things that you already have kind of the preconceived notions about. You're actually listening and investing in who these people might be and how they might fit together in this heist. So
I entirely agree, and I think there's a place for the droids and aliens, obviously, but
absolutely.
But there's also a place for this.
Yeah. And I think this slow burn.
Now we see what happens when you screw up your career in corporate security.
Yeah, you just get sent home to mother. And just as we were saying, there weren't any weird, outlandish characters in the show. Now we're going to meet this guy's mom.
Oh my god, she's wild.
Could be a droid, could be an alien. I don't know.
Yeah, could be both.
Could just be an overbearing mom.
Really, this guy, he's like a character out of a Kafka story almost.
Yep.
He's just 100%. So crushed by his own circumstances.
His own choices, I would say.
Yeah, that too. This is actually a really great performance for just being a guy walking down a corridor.
Yeah.
Well, because you portray defeated. I mean, he literally is walking and portraying defeat at the same time, like in his walk.
And here's mom.
Mother.
Take that.
A little bit of sugar, a little bit of spice.
We've all been there.
Tell off our neighbors. What are you looking at?
Yeah, what are you staring at?
It's going to be interesting watching that relationship. Hopefully they're impressed by his blaster scars, at least.
You put away the 50,000 credit valuable object.
Right, it's a little ostentatious.
So yeah, so more of meeting our characters, meeting our heist. So yeah, I mean this section. Every time we cut to this part of it here, the planning, the preparation, the setting for the heist could have easily been an episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. If you were back in the olden days when you had to flip channels, you were flipping channels and you came to this scene and had never seen this before. Yeah, you would have no idea that it was Star Wars.
It could have been Zelda. Or no, Xena, Princess Warrior. They're in this
Walking Dead. I get Walking Dead vibes from it.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, anything, really anything. I mean, it could. I mean, the costumes are the only thing that would make me think I'm not watching Xena or Game of Thrones because they're a bit contemporary for those. All that bare concrete.
And then you cut to Coruscant.
Yeah.
Senator Mon Mothma.
Which again, in the daylight.
Yeah, always in the daylight. That's an interesting observation. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Because didn't we always see it at night?
We did. In I think the only other, we saw it briefly in Phantom Menace, and then we saw a fair amount of it in Attack of the Clones.
A little bit of Jedi Council in the daytime, right?
Yeah, but you're right. Mostly we saw it the longest sequence was in Attack of the Clones, and it was only at night.
And that's my biggest memory of it anyway. That's the thing that is embedded. That's my read of Coruscant until this, and now it's completely different.
Very different.
The receptionist lady, she's weird. I want to know more about her.
Yeah, she's got secrets.
She's oddly competent for a shop girl.
She could be dark.
In a I'm going to do whatever it takes kind of way.
Well, as would make sense for him to have as his one person he can trust there.
Right, because I mean his his assistant would kind of have to be in on it. His job would be orders of magnitude more difficult if he had to hide things from her.
Which makes me wonder if Luthen wasn't the original shop girl.
Yeah, maybe that's a thought.
And then he evolved into that because, you know, obviously we can tell she clearly is in on the.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because she's purposely keeping, you know,
Distracting.
Mon Mothma's assistant, you know, or security guard,
Mhm.
basically keeping him
right.
distracted while the two of them get to have a conversation.
Right.
Yep.
Now there's an Easter egg in the store. Catherine and I were
There's
talking
a
about it
few.
yesterday,
Several,
but I
I think.
couldn't remember what it was.
I think there are tons of them. I saw a thing on a video on YouTube that was like pointing out all these things, and I was like, oh my god,
Yeah,
that's
I was
a
thinking
lot
it
of
was there's something from Indiana Jones in the store, but
that there's an Indiana Jones thing. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff, but yeah, there's an Indiana Jones Easter egg.
Indiana, he leaves his crap everywhere, so I'm sure there's.
That's easy. Yep.
Yeah,
Now, if Willow's staff is there, that'd be pretty cool.
that would be fun. I'm gonna have to look that up. I meant to do that today, and I didn't get around to it. What else
That
is in
kind of
the
looks
show?
like a Vader helmet back there.
Does a bit,
Yeah.
or like the sort of the Japanese style helmets that Vader's
Samurai
helmet.
helmet. Yeah.
But there's all kinds of other helmets, and there's a lightsaber or a sword of something.
Yeah,
There's
it's a weird shop.
Well, and obviously it's you know it serves multiple purposes, multiple layers, but they're now having their conversation, their sneaky forming rebellion conversation here.
And a shopkeeper is actually a great cover for what he's doing because
Right.
anybody
money
would have a
to
good
throw.
reason to walk in and talk to him. So he can have meetings with anyone and it doesn't look suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The one figure in the back with the spikes coming out of the helmet is making me think of Batman '89, King of the Wicker People.
Oh yes, I bought it in Japan.
It's Japanese. How do you know? I bought it in Japan.
That jacket that she's wearing is amazing. The way that it cuts on the shoulders and then if the back, it like matches the sleeves. It's just like,
It's very very geometric. You don't see like sharp angles on clothing that much.
yeah. And she said they were very uncomfortable to wear. Like they didn't really move very well.
Do we know what planet she's the senator from?
Chandrila.
Okay.
Chandrila,
Yeah, they actually mention it in that when she first arrives, I think.
Get
Or maybe
a,
they mention it when she gets home to
I
her.
think I remember reading that, but it didn't compute to my brain. But you get a gold star on your nerd card.
All
They
right.
have fantastic blue wine, if I remember my RPG.
Yeah,
well,
Chandrila.
Chandrila Blue.
Mhm. Shout, argue. This guy's not happy about it either.
Everybody's not happy.
No one's happy about it. Yeah, no one likes each other.
Why would you be happy?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
if they were happy, they wouldn't be trying to overthrow the government.
Well, but I mean, what they're unhappy about is throwing this new wrench into it. That 3 days left to go before the mission. All of a sudden, there's this new person here.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're not wrong.
And Clem, it just cracks me up. I
Clem.
think in Fallout, the guy in Fallout 4, the guy that's in the vault, Clem, I think, is that his name? I don't even know. Does he have a name? That would be his name.
Clem.
Clem.
He's
He's
Clem.
Clem.
He's here. He's Clem. He's here. That's what matters. Deal with it. Move on.
He's just such a little guy, too.
I know. I've marveled at that. Years and years ago, I went to see, they had an exhibit of Star Wars props and costumes at the Smithsonian.
Mhm.
And I happened to be in DC, so I went to see it. And
It
I
actually
really
traveled.
I marveled
It
at how, what was that?
I was just going to say it came through Denver too. It traveled
Yeah.
and it came through Denver. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it this was in, God, 1998 maybe. But anyway, it amazed me how tiny all the costumes were. It really seemed like no human would, even like the two main ones I remember they had one of Princess Leia's gowns, and of course Carrie Fisher was a pretty small person. But the Han Solo costume, I was surprised at how tiny that one was, actually.
Makes you feel better about yourself when you realize that Han Solo isn't 6'4".
Yeah. Oh, at the time, maybe. Now it just makes me feel even worse about how heavy I've gotten in my old age.
How he could maybe still fit into it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no way I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, at San Diego Comic-Con, we saw the new Star Trek costumes. And I don't know, their waists have to be like 24 inches or something.
I love this view into Mon Mothma's world. I mean, this character who, appeared for 90 seconds, in a movie, 40 years ago. And now we're given this entire backstory, this entire inner life. I mean, I know she's been explored in the animated, much better, and in Clone Wars and stuff like that. We got a lot more of her, but for live action now, to get this really extensive use of her as a character, it was one of my favorite things about Andor.
Yeah. And honestly, we got a little of her in the Clone Wars, but not that much.
Yeah, no. And I feel so sorry for her.
But that, this story had to be about her in some ways. If it's going to be about the formation of the Rebel Alliance, then
right,
she had to feature strongly in it.
In what way did you feel sorry about her, Kim?
Well, her husband doesn't like her. Her child doesn't like her. I mean, she's just I don't know. A lot of people in the Senate don't like her either. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, they're all happy to go along with the Empire because they're wealthy and privileged, and so they're not really feeling any of the ill effects of the Emperor's reign.
Yep. So she's that person of conscience, that kind of liberal representative who's even though it doesn't benefit her to try to help everyone else, that's her motivation.
Well, and she's done wonders for the Star Wars RPG for the playing a consular character versus a smuggler or a pilot or a rogue. So
now we're working out the mechanics of the heist.
The model is overly detailed.
Yeah,
it looks great, but
as an architect, I'm questioning the
Well, they were working with that one guy who's working on the other side, so he can't be there a lot. So they didn't have anything to do. So they thought they'd build this little diorama.
Sure.
And help us.
It's very
Steve,
nice.
I have no doubt that you could build something just as good out of rocks and twigs from your backyard.
Well, that's the thing. It's challenging. It's challenging to do with all the materials that I have at hand at Blick. But if I was out in the woods, yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah,
somebody has skills
3D
here.
printer out there.
Yeah, but you always have to, it's like a feature of heist movies. They have to have something, because this is the scene in every heist movie where they tell you in detail.
Either have a map or a board, or
and they have to tell you how things are supposed to go.
That's right.
Because now we're going to see how all of this planning goes horribly, horribly wrong, because it always does.
How they don't use any of it.
Yeah, that's the point of it, is it gives you the blueprint for what you're going to see, so that
you
can tell the difference when it starts to go wrong.
Right.
Because the plan never goes like this.
No.
Usually they go into the entrance and then it all starts going wrong.
Right. One thing after another. It's an accepted feature of the heist formula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just never really thought of this as a formula. I'm just like, oh, more Star Wars. Let me put it in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Now, the character who's kind of in the lead here is Vel, I think the name is. The actress playing her was also, I mentioned Game of Thrones earlier. She was a very memorable character in Game of Thrones, but it was a very one-note kind of character that they didn't really get to explore. So I really liked getting to see this actress kind of do more here and get more facets.
There were, in her defense, there were a lot of characters in Game of Thrones.
Yes. Yeah, there was no way to explore all the characters that they threw at us in Game of Thrones.
Well,
When
you
I-
do get to hear, I mean, because she's like playing two sides.
Yep.
She's not like poor and have to be fighting this way.
Well, but we don't know that at this point. I mean, all
Yeah.
all we know at this point is that she has more knowledge
Oh,
than anyone else does
favorite.
because she's the conduit to Luthen. So
Right.
It's Dedra.
Notice that the ISB commander has the poofiest of pants. His pants are
Oh,
that's
so the,
like it's a badge of
high
honor
rank.
how huge your pants are.
He has the extra medium.
Yes. He was in Game of Thrones too, I think.
yes,
I
I believe you're
think
right.
everybody was.
Everyone in
With
Great
their
Britain
own
has either been in Game of Thrones or Harry Potter.
Yep.
Right, true.
No exceptions.
Yeah, no, okay, now I got it. Yeah, I was trying to remember who he was, and I'm like, yeah, so now I remember who he was in Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite extremely obscure television shows is Primeval, which is a British show about dinosaurs coming to the present day and causing havoc. And he was a recurring character in the last couple of seasons of that too. He's good at playing this kind of character who knows more than he's saying and bosses everybody around.
Yeah, because you could see him sliding into like any British army drama as like, you know, the middle management corporal, lieutenant or something, like berating people.
Well, you find something you're good at, you go with it.
So he asks, like, what do you think of him? And she doesn't think highly of him. And he goes, well, his reports are in and yours aren't.
It is such a bureaucracy. It's such a just this colossal structure. It's very, like I said before, it's very Kafkaesque, I think, very much.
Yeah, it's not about achievements. It's it's not about inspiration or achievement or who's brilliant. It's about who files the reports on time.
Exactly.
That's the star, Who dots the I's and crosses the T's better.
Yeah. And that writes the history and writes the facts.
Right. And Kafka's stories were always about the guy who just couldn't make himself fit into that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's actually super interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but it's very Kafkaesque.
It doesn't look like he's enjoying his food.
Yeah.
With his previous experience as a cook, they probably should have had him make it.
Right.
Didn't say he was a good cook.
Yeah. I guess they don't trust him yet.
And he ran away. Maybe he ran away because he was such a bad cook.
Maybe. Yeah, they didn't say who was chasing him when he ran away.
Yeah.
So now they've just told them that he's got a lot of homework to do tonight.
You'll learn all about by the morning.
Yep. Well, yeah, he came in at the 11 and a half hour of the 12-hour process of planning this.
Sure, and they're gonna haze him wherever they can. Boy, nobody does a hangdog look like Diego Luna. Just that Eeyore look. This one ended kind of abruptly, I thought.
Yeah, just
I wasn't ready for it to be over yet.
Yep.
No, I'm
basically
waiting for way more. Yeah.
You got your homework. You've got to learn it by the morning.
Da, da, da.
Yep. Good luck with that.
After the thrilling battle of the last episode, this one was a bit of a slow burn.
Yeah, it was.
Pretty much all development and exposition.
Met a lot of new characters. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they introduced all the heist characters and then all the Imperial bureaucracy too. So yeah, they did throw a lot of new stuff at us.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to kind of analyze the entire season after the season's over to see what that structure actually is, the acceleration and the pause, and the acceleration and the pause.
Well, there's definitely arcs. I mean, it is definitely built into certain, a story ends and then the next arc begins. I mean, we had the arc of basically establishing our characters, establishing him getting off of the world where he's been living forever and the identity that he had, and now we're kind of we're starting the next thing, and the next thing is the Aldhani heist, and that's his story. But then we've got these other stories running in parallel as well. But the thrust of the Andor story for the next 3-4 episodes is the Aldhani heist.
Yeah, and then structurally, it's necessary because like the heist is a simple story that you don't have to spend a lot of time explaining to the audience because everybody's seen.
I mean, it could have been done in one episode. It was done in one episode in Mandalorian. It didn't have to be stretched across 3 episodes.
But the reason it did need to be stretched across 3 episodes, because really the point of this arc is reintroducing Mon Mothma and introducing the Imperial woman character.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at remembering the names of these
Dedra?
Dedra, thank you. So introducing Dedra and Mon Mothma is the point of this next arc, really. So it's more about what they're doing, but it's Andor's name on the box, so he has to be in it. So we can't just forget about him for 3 episodes.
We spent 7 minutes bringing his name on screen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's what more do you want?
Now I forgot to take my break too, because that's normally the time you get to go restock snacks and stuff.
Yeah, sure. But I think it's calculated is what I'm getting at. Give him a simpler story so we can focus on these other characters.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to keeping going with the Dedra thing, because I actually ended up liking her, and Kim does not like her. So this is going to be interesting.
All right. So we have Team Dedra and Team Not
Love
Dedra.
to argue. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So things to watch. Watch The Bear. You gotta watch The Bear.
What channel is The Bear on?
It's on Hulu, actually.
Hulu. Yeah.
Man, it never fails. I just got rid of Hulu because I have too many streaming channels and not enough time to watch them.
I just literally today in my Disney Plus, Hulu showed up as a thing within Disney Plus as a beta.
Oh yeah, I was reading about that. It's because that's the beta for them combining it into one service.
Yeah, that so just showed up for me literally today.
Yeah, if you already had a subscription to both under the same email address, they did that. But yeah, I just dropped it because I wasn't using it I wasn't watching it. And then naturally, right after I dropped it, a bunch of stuff hit that I wanted to see, or I got recommended a bunch of stuff.
Do what Gen Z does. I mean, they turn it on for a month, watch the show they want to watch, and then turn it off for next month.
I was actually just thinking I would wait until a good package deal with Disney Plus presents itself.
Yeah, that's basically. I mean, not to get too in the weeds on this, but that's basically what I have. Is I have it's a deal for Hulu that I'm getting Disney Plus for like $1 in addition to Hulu. So.
Well, and if you're I don't know, I know Jefferson's probably not into this, but ESPN Plus comes in a package as well. That makes
that's what blows the deal for me, because all of their deals up until now required you to do all 3, and I could care less about ESPN.
Yeah,
I'm the same.
I'm a soccer guy, so I watch a lot of soccer, so it's been brilliant for me.
Cool.
Well, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yes, well, because 90% of the rest of the world cares about it.
Right. Yeah, right. I didn't know it was that popular.
And I think we're going to get an episode of Andor where they actually go to an intergalactic Champions League game. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see that crossover.
Cool. Well, the next episode 5, is The Axe Forgets, which sounds like a title from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Well, we have 90% of the actors, so
we do, and I think some of the locations too. I think this was filmed in Ireland, and that's where most of Game of Thrones was filmed, is in Ireland.
Interesting. Well, cool. Thanks for kind of coming back for binging The Force, and we're back to binging. So we will keep this train rolling next week with The Axe Begins, or The Axe Forgets.
Looking forward to it.
The Axe remembers. No, the Axe.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, the Axe remembers. Yeah. The wheel turned. Okay. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jefferson. Make Jefferson choke.
Good night, everybody.
Okay. Good night, everyone.